Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Camden Opera House. My name is Dave Morrison. I am the Opera House manager. We are so happy that you have joined us here tonight for our very first performance of 2025. And this has become something of a tradition, is that we kick off the year the best way possible, which is our friends at Everyman do a radio play in the classic tradition. So tonight's show is presented thanks to your generous donations to the Community Arts Fund. And whether you contribute when you buy tickets on our website, or if you drop a few dollars in the bucket in the lobby, we thank you. The Community Arts Fund supports the Soundcheck performances like this one tonight, also the free Summer Sounds concerts at the Snow Bowl in August, our summer theater camp, and a favorite that we're bringing back next week, the Blue Cafe, which is the performance series on the third floor that's free, so please come to that. So thank you for your help with that. Tonight's performance is dedicated to ERT's irreplaceable Lonnie Latrine, Dean Jorgensen. And now, without further ado, please enjoy as the Everyman Repertory Theater brings you the Campbell Soup Radio Playhouse production of A Christmas Carol.
The makers of Campbell Soups present the Campbell Soup Playhouse. Orson Welles producer. Good evening, listeners. This is Ernestine Chappelle, CEO of Campbell Soup, speaking. Tonight, Orson Welles and the Camden Soup Players observe a Christmas tradition of long-standing. They bring you Charles Dickens' well-loved Yuletide tale, A Christmas Carol. Campbell Soup went shopping for a Christmas present to give to all their friends. They found it in this story, Charles Dickens' embodiment of the very spirit of Christmas. And they chose well, because throughout the country today, in thousands of homes, it has become an important and beloved Christmas custom. And it is more than that. For with this Christmas present to you, we say thank you for your purchases of Campbell Soup throughout the months gone by. Indeed, this Christmas season makes those purchases more manifest. Your grocery stores see their stocks of Campbell Soup dwindle ever more quickly than at any other time of the year. It used to be thought that sales increased in preparation for the Christmas feast. But really, it isn't that alone. It's just that you want to have a plentiful supply of good soups on hand throughout the holiday season so that they can serve nourishing platefuls, piping hot at any holiday meal. The youngsters are on the go all day long, making the most of the Christmas vacation, and soup can be ready for them in a jiffy. There's health and happiness in good hot soup. Your grocer has Campbell Soup's 21 different kinds awaiting your selection.
Good evening. This is Orson Welles. Every nation has its traditions that have enriched Christmas, our solemnest festival. And because America is what it is, we've inherited the cumulative traditions of over 2,000 years of celebrating Christmas. The best songs that are sung by us. The best games that have been played, we play. The best stories ever told are ours to tell. There are clearly a number of ways in which a Christmas carol could be introduced. Myself, I am most struck by the happy fortune that enables us on this Christmas Eve to present Mr. Robin Jones, the best-loved actor of our time, in the world's best-loved Christmas story, A Christmas Carol. When Charles Dickens presented this little story to the world more than 150 years ago, he found an instant response in the hearts of people everywhere who saw in it their favorite fictional chronicle of what Christmas is and what Christmas means to all the simple people of the earth. From the day of its first printing, innumerable families established an unbroken tradition of reading A Christmas Carol, and it became an item indispensable to a proper observance of Christmas.
We get a great deal of pleasure planning and preparing this Christmas gift, and now it's ready. Off come the wrappings, off come the tags, off comes a card to you from Campbell's, and here is the gift itself.
Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon the stock exchange for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead, of course he did. Scrooge and Marley were partners for I don't know how many years. But he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, was Scrooge. Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, secret and self-contained. But once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house, a grim, cheerless place if ever there was one. It was a cold, bleak, biting evening, foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside, wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts, and stamping their feet upon the pavement to warm them. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, Bob Cratchit, who in a cold and dismal little cell beyond worked at his ledgers.
19, 20, 21, 22, on this Christmas down, 23, 26, 29, 9 carried 2, 17, 13, 17...
Stop, Cratchit!
Yes, Mr. Scrooge!
Stop that infernal caterwauling!
Yes, sir! 9, 15, 17...
I'm
16.
going to tell them to stop that infernal noise.
Yes, Mr. Scrooge!
Confound their impudence singing their idiotic Christmas carols at my very door. Go on! Get away from my door!
Whoa, oh,
Go somewhere else and gather your blasted carols, or I'll give you something to sing about.
why, Governor, it's an old custom at Christmas time, you know.
Yes, and I don't want any of your old customs. Take your fellow fools and go away. Christmas, bah!
Right, sir. Merry Christmas to you anyway, sir.
Gah! Now, you get that letter from Higgins and Blackthorn, Cratchit, and then I want you to finish posting this letter. And after that, you can pop over to Pothergill's and tell Ephraim Pothergill you've come after the 17 shillings and 6 he's owed me since Michaelmas. And you tell him I shall have a constable over there if he doesn't pay up at once.
Mr. Pothergill's wife has been ill, sir.
Oh, what do I care about his wife? I want my 17 and 6.
I just thought it being Christmas, sir.
Christmas. You mention that word to me once more, Bob Cratchit, and I'll...
Merry Christmas, Uncle. A Merry Christmas, Bob.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Fred.
God save you, Uncle.
Ah, humbug!
Christmas. A humbug, Uncle? Come now, I'm sure you don't mean that.
I mean just that, exactly that. Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you? You're poor enough.
Come now, Uncle. What right have you to be dismal about Christmas, Uncle? You're rich enough.
Ah!
Now, Uncle, don't be cross.
Well, what else can I be when I live in a world of fools? What's Christmas to you but a time for paying bills without money? Merry Christmas. A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips would be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should.
Uncle!
Now, nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it? But you don't keep it, Uncle.
Well, leave me alone then. What do you want? A Christmas gift, I've no doubt?
I came to wish you a Merry Christmas.
A Merry Christmas. Much good may Christmas do you. Ha ha. Much good it ever has done you.
There are many things from which I derive good, by which I have not profited materially, I dare say, Uncle. Christmas among the rest. But I have always thought of Christmas time as a good time, A kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good, and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
God bless Christmas. Hurrah!
Let me hear another sound out of you there, Bob Cratchit, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. As to you, nephew, I wonder you don't go into Parliament. You talk enough nonsense.
Oh, don't be angry, Uncle. I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why can we not be friends?
Good afternoon.
I am sorry you feel that way. Well, I tried. A Merry Christmas to you, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year, too.
Ah, humbug.
And Merry Christmas to you, Bob. And the missus. Oh, and to Tiny Tim.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Fred. Same to you, sir. A good day, sir.
Good day, Bob.
Nonsense, twaddle, flummery. Talking of Christmas and not 2 sixpences to jingle together in his trousers pocket. Hey, you there, Bob Cratchit. Come here, what are you doing there?
I'm only putting a bit more coal in the fire, Mr. Scrooge, seeing it's so cold in here,
You
sir.
put that coal back into the scuttle. A fire. A fire indeed, I can tell you. If you use coal at that rate, you and I will soon be parting company, Bob Cratchit. You understand that? There's many a young fella like your situation, you know.
I'm sorry, sir. My fingers were getting a little stiff with the cold.
Then put on your mittens.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
Someone at the door. Go see who it is.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
This is the firm of Scrooge and Marley.
Yes, sir.
I should like to see the head of the firm, if I may.
Oh, very good, sir.
What is it?
A gentleman to see you, Mr. Scrooge.
Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Marley's been dead these 7 years tonight. I'm Scrooge, though I doubt that'll be any pleasure to you.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. Well, now, Mr. Scrooge, all this season of the year, it's only fitting that we are, for the more fortunate, should we raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. You may not believe it, sir, but many thousands are now in want of common necessities. And hundreds of thousands are in want of the simplest comforts.
Are there no prisons?
Well, there are plenty of prisons, sir.
And the workhouses, they're still in operation, I trust?
Well, I wish I could say they are not, but they are, sir.
The treadmill and the poor law are still in full vigor, then?
Both very busy, sir.
Ah, I'm glad to hear that. I was afraid, from what you said at first, that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course.
No, sir. All these institutions that you mention are flourishing, but it's nevertheless true that some additional provisions for the poor and the destitute must be made.
Oh, now, sir, what do you want with me?
A few of us upon change are endeavoring to raise such a fund, you see. And, what shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
Oh, I see you wish to be anonymous, sir.
I wish to be left alone. I don't make merry myself at Christmas time, and I can't afford to help make a lot of idle people merry. I help to support the establishments that take care of the poor. They cost enough. Let those who are badly off go there.
Many can't go there, sir, and many would rather die.
Then my advice to them is to do so and decrease the surplus population. Besides, I've only your word for it that all this is so.
It's the truth, Mr. Scrooge. You might know it yourself someday.
Well, so be it then. It's not my business. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, sir.
I quite understand, Mr. Scrooge. Good afternoon.
Cratchit, show this gentleman out.
Yes, sir. This way, sir, please. Sir, I couldn't help overhearing. I should like to contribute tuppence.
Cratchit!
Yes, sir. It isn't much, but it's all I can afford. But there are others in worse situation than I.
You're a generous fellow. I wish I might say so of your employer.
Cratchit!
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Cratchit!
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas. Yes, sir.
Close the door!
Yes, sir. 24, 31, 1 carry 3, A new scarlet tippet for Tiny Tim, a comb for Martha, 33, 3, 3 and carry 3, a hair ribbon for Belinda, 4, 4, 7, 12, 15. Yes, sir! Yes, sir!
It's too late to have you go to Parthagil's. It'll be closed up for Christmas like those other fools. We may as well close up the place now.
Yes, sir. It is getting a little dark. Hard to see the figures.
I suppose you'll want the entire day off tomorrow.
If it's quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient, and it's not fair either. But I suppose I can't do anything about it. If I was to stop half a crown of your wages, you'd think yourself very ill-used, I'll be bound.
Well, sir...
Yeah, but you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work.
It's only once a year, sir.
Once a year. Once a year indeed. A fine excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose there's no good talking. You must have the whole day. Well, see that you're here all the earlier the next morning. You understand?
Oh, I will, sir. I will indeed. Good night, sir, and Merry Christmas.
Ah!
Merry Christmas!
Ah!
The office was closed in a twinkling, and Bob Cratchit, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no greatcoat, went down a slide and Cornhill 20 times in honor of its being Christmas Eve, and then ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could, pelt to play with his family at Blind Man's Buff. Scrooge, on the other hand, took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern. Having read all the newspapers and spent the rest of the evening with his banker's book, he went home to his dismal house. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. The yard was so dark that even Scrooge, who knew its every stone, had to grope with his hands through the fog and the frost to find the door, the fog and frost that hung about the black old gateway of the house. Before he shut his heavy door, Scrooge walked through his rooms to see that all was right. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Small fire in the grate of his bedroom, spoon and basin ready, and little saucepan of gruel upon the hob. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa, nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet. Closed the door. He locked himself in. He double-locked himself in. Then he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, sat down before the fire to take his gruel.
Marley? 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 I could have sworn I saw old humbug. Marley's been dead these 7 years. Humbug. All humbug. What I need is a good night's sleep. What's that? What? Someone's in the wine cellar. But the door's locked and double locked. Something's coming. Something is coming closer. Outside my door. Ah! I won't believe it. It's humbug still.
It's a very low fire indeed, nothing on such a bitter night, not even enough to kindle a glow of light in the cheerless room. Scrooge stretched his numb fingers over the wretched fire. Then he saw something that made him draw them back. Slowly, the meager embers dissolved before his astonished eyes, dissolved into a face, a ghostly face, but one that Scrooge recognized as the face of Marley, his partner, dead these 7 years. It was not angry or ferocious, but looked at Scrooge as Marley used to look, with ghostly spectacles turned on its ghostly forehead. The hairs were curiously stirred, like flames blown from a chimney draught, above the dead, cold eyes. And through the dead, cold body, Scrooge saw the buttons on the back of his coat.
Come back, humbug!
Scrooge got up and walked away from the fire. As he turned, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the corner of the room. It was with great astonishment and with a strange, inexplicable dread. But as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing slowly at first. And on it was the same face he had seen in the fire, Marley's face. And then he saw Marley's body coming straight at him through the door, a body pale as the bluish smoke that comes out of a chimney on a cold day, a body so transparent that Scrooge, looking through his waistcoat, could see his watch in his waistcoat pocket. And he drew a chain along beside him that was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail, and it was made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, and heavy purses wrought in steel. Even now, Scrooge would not believe his eyes. The ghost advanced towards him.
Ebenezer Scrooge. Ebenezer Scrooge.
Oh, no. What do you want with me?
I want very much from you, Ebenezer.
Who are you?
And ask me who I was.
Oh, you're very particular for a ghost. All right, then. Who were you?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Jacob Marley? But you're dead. You died 7 years ago.
7 years ago, this very night.
You are a ghost, then?
What's wrong, Ebenezer? Don't you believe in me?
I do not.
You doubt your senses, Ebenezer.
Yes, because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You can't be a ghost. You may be an undigested bit of beef, or a blot of mustard, or a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There may be more gravy than grave about you, whatever you are. Humbug. I tell you, humbug.
Taking the bandage off from around his head as if it were too warm to wear indoors, its lower jaw dropped upon its breast.
Now, with the world in mind, do you believe in me now?
I do believe in you. I do. You are a ghost, Jacob.
Thank you.
But why do you walk the earth, Jacob? Why do you come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad amongst his fellow men and travel far and wide to witness what he cannot share, but might have shared on earth and turn to happiness.
But tell me, Jacob, what is that chain you wear around you?
I wear the chain I forged in life. Cash boxes, keys and padlocks, ledgers and purses. I made it link by link, yard by yard, and my own free will. Is its pattern strange to you, Ebenezer?
Cash boxes, keys and padlocks, ledgers and purses.
Yours was as heavy and as long as this 7 years ago. You have labored on it since, Ebenezer.
Oh, Jacob, speak comfort to me, Jacob.
Comfort I have none to give. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger. No rest. No peace. Incessant torture of remorse. Weary journeys lie before me.
You travel fast?
Yes, Ebenezer. On the wings of the wind.
7 years dead and traveling all the time.
7 years, Ebenezer. 7 years of remorse. Ebenezer, do you know that no space of regret can make amends for one's life's opportunities misused?
But you were always a good man of business, Jacob.
Business? Mankind was my business. Charity, mercy, benevolence, they were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business.
Jacob, don't take on so now, Jacob.
Listen to me, Ebenezer.
I'll listen to you, Jacob. Go on, Jacob, now. Please speak to me, but don't be so flowery.
Ebenezer, I am here to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. Do you hear me, Ebenezer?
Yes, Jacob, yes. You always were a good friend to me, Jacob. Thanks, Jacob. But go on. How shall I escape? Oh, I'm afraid,
Listen to me, Ebenezer. You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
Is that the only chance and hope, Jacob?
It is your only chance and hope.
Well, then I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night, at the same hour. The third upon the next night, look again at once. Expect to see me no more, and look, that for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us.
Couldn't I take them all at once and have it over?
Ebenezer, look, that for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us. Remember, when the bell tolls 1, look for the first spirit.
Marley? Jacob Marley?
And now, just before the Christmas carol recommences, Ernestine Chappelle has another special Christmas greeting from the makers of Campbell's Soup. Ms. Chappelle?
Oh, thank you, Orson. As the old year draws towards its close, we of Campbell's feel a bond of warmth and gratitude toward each of you, our friends. For you see, in homes everywhere throughout the land, Campbell's soups have been welcomed. Day by day and week by week, you have placed confidence in us and in the foods we make. And there isn't anything we appreciate more deeply than the fact that so many of you have elected to let Campbell's make your soups for you. And so, this telling of a Christmas carol will become a Christmas custom, as Mr. Wells said, to gather around the radio to hear and to enjoy a Christmas carol. And since it is to become a tradition, we hope, too, that the younger members of the family have been permitted to stay up and listen.
Thank you, Ms. Chappelle. Scrooge awoke. He was lying on his bed, fully dressed. Suddenly, the curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them. As close as it is as I am now to you, and I am standing in spirit at your elbow. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. The arms were long and muscular, the hands the same, as if its hold were of uncommon strength. Its dress was of the purest white, trimmed with summer flowers. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprang a clear jet of light by which all this was visible.
Ebenezer Scrooge!
Who's that?
Ebenezer Scrooge, I have come for you.
You? Are you the spirit, ma'am, whose coming was foretold me?
I am that spirit.
What are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past.
Oh, but what business brings you here? What do you want of me? What brings you here to haunt me?
Your welfare, Ebenezer Scrooge. Rise and walk with me.
Oh, no, not out of the window. Why, I can't do that. I'll fall down. I'm not a spirit. I'm a mortal, and I'll fall.
Bear but a touch of my hand upon your heart, and you shall be upheld in more than this. Come, follow me.
They stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished, and the darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold winter day with snow upon the ground. They walked along the road. Scrooge began to recognize every gate, every post, every tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance with its bridge, its church, and winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them with boys upon their backs, drawing sleighs, and all these boys were in great spirits and showed to each other that they were happy, shouting through the broad fields until they were so full of music that they laughed to hear it. There stood old Scrooge in his dressing gown and slippers and nightcap on the hill, and beside him the spirit of Christmas past, and now the spirit spoke again.
Not all the boys and girls were singing on that Christmas day, were they, Ebenezer Scrooge?
Where are we? What's become of the city? And there's snow upon the ground? Where are we?
These are the shadows of things that have been. You recognize this countryside?
Oh, I know every inch of it. Every rock, every tree.
And that bleak building over there.
That building. I was a boy there. Yes, I went to school in that horrible place.
Do you recollect that path?
I could walk it blindfold.
Strange. You should have forgotten it for so many years. Come, let us go. Closer. Look through the window into that cold, barren room. What do you see, Ebenezer Scrooge?
I see a boy.
A solitary child, neglected by his friends, alone, a book open before him.
Yes, I see. I know that boy. Oh, I was so lonely.
Your lip is trembling, Scrooge. And what is that on your cheek?
It's nothing at all. I wish... it's too late now.
What's the matter?
Nothing. The waifs came to my door singing Christmas carols last night, and there was a boy like that among them. A poor, pale, thin little boy in a ragged coat. I should have liked to have given him something. That's all.
Is that all? Come, Ebenezer Scrooge. Let us see another Christmas. Do you know this place, Ebenezer Scrooge?
Know it. This is the counting house where I was apprentice. It's my old master, bless his heart, old Fezziwig. My master alive again and hosting one of his Christmas parties, and we, his clerks, and singing and laughing and happy for Christmas. Listen to him. There's Dick Wilkins. Poor Dick. Dear. Yes, and look, there's Mrs. Fezziwig herself, looking younger than any of them. And the table's all loaded with roast and ciders, mince pie and beer. Oh, what a jolly time we used to have.
That carefree young man with the light heart and gay smile. Do you recognize him?
Yes. Merciful heaven, how happy I was then.
A small matter for old Fezziwig to make these silly folks so full of joy.
Small matter. Small indeed.
Isn't it? He has spent only a few pounds of your mortal money. Is that so much that he deserves praise?
It's not that. It's not that, Spirit. Old Fezziwig has the power to make us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or heavy. His power lies in words and looks and in things so tiny it's impossible to count them up. The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost...
What is that, huh?
No, nothing at all, Spirit.
Something, I think.
No.
Speak.
Well, only it's just that I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk, Bob Cratchit, that's all.
My time grows short, and we have yet another journey to make.
Where now?
Come.
Again, Scrooge saw himself in a room that was vaguely familiar. He was an older man, a man in the prime of his life, and he was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl. There were tears in her eyes.
This is our last visit to the past, Ebenezer. Here, in this little room, with a fair young girl by your side. Do Do you recognize yourself, Ebenezer?
No. Spare me this, please.
You're older now. A man in the prime of his life. Your face has begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. Your eyes are greedy. The eager, restless eyes of a miser.
No, please.
She knows it too. That girl by your side. There are tears in her eyes.
It matters little to you. Very little. I know that. I know another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve.
What idol has displaced you?
A golden one. Listen to me, there's nothing the world is so hard on as poverty, and yet nothing it pretends to condemn so much as the pursuit of wealth.
Belle, have I changed towards you?
When we were engaged, we were both poor.
Was it better then? Better to be poor?
Better at least to be happy. You're changed. You were another man then.
I was a boy. You blame me because I've grown wiser? Have I ever tried to break our engagement?
In words, no. Never.
In what then?
In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in everything that made my love of any value in your sight. So, I release you from your promise.
Belle, I love you still.
Oh, at first it may cause you pain to lose me. A very brief pain, but soon it will dim, like a half-remembered dream. An unprofitable dream. And you will be glad to be awake from such a dream. May you be happy in the life you have chosen, Ebenezer, for the love of whom you once loved.
Spirit, that's enough. Show me no more. Take me home.
These were shadows of things that have been. That they are what they are. Do not blame me.
No more.
One more shadow. Come.
Relentlessly, the ghost pinioned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. They were in a room not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. All around them were the voices of children talking and laughing, and before the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like the last that Scrooge believed it was the same, until he saw that this girl he had been betrothed to was now a handsome middle-aged woman sitting with her husband at their own fireside.
Do you see this man, Ebenezer Scrooge? This man might have been you, and the woman beside him your wife. And that girl might have been your daughter. Ebenezer Scrooge, she might have called you father. She might have been a springtime in the haggard winter of your life.
Spirit, let me go. Show me no more.
Listen now while they speak, Ebenezer.
Belle, I saw an old friend of yours today.
Who was it?
Guess.
Oh, can I? I know. Mr. Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window. It wasn't shuttered. And there was a candle inside, so I couldn't help seeing him. His partner, Marley, lies at the point of death, I hear. And there Scrooge sat, all alone. Quite alone in the world, I do believe.
Spirit, I can't bear any more. Please leave me. Haunt me no more. Take me back. Take me back!
In his anguish, Scrooge began to struggle with the ghost of Christmas past. The light in the crown of its head burned high and bright. Scrooge was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by irresistible drowsiness, and further, of being in his own bedroom. He had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. On the stroke of one, Scrooge wakened suddenly and sat bolt upright in his bed.
You are listening to the Campbell Soup Playhouse, bringing you tonight its presentation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, produced by Orson Welles and starring Robin Jones as Scrooge. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. We pause now for station identification. This is WERT at the Camden Opera House. And now, back to the Campbell Soup Playhouse and our presentation of A Christmas Carol, a Christmas present from the makers of Campbell Soup.
On the stroke of one, Scrooge had awakened suddenly and sat bolt upright in his own bed. He remembered the words of Marley's ghost and wondered from which direction the second spectre would appear. At that moment, nothing between a baby and a rhinoceros would have astonished him very much. Now, being prepared for almost anything, he was not by any means prepared for nothing, and consequently, when no shape appeared, he was taken with a violent fit of trembling. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour went by, yet nothing came, and all this time he sat upon the bed with his nightcap on his head, the very core and central of a blaze of ruddy light which streamed upon him. It being only light, this was more alarming than a dozen ghosts, as he was powerless to make out what it meant. He began to think that the source of this ghostly light might be in the adjoining room, from whence, on further tracing, it seemed to shine. He got up softly and shuffled in his slippers to the door. It was his own sitting room, no doubt about that, but it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove, from every part of which bright, gleaming berries glistened, and such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney as had never been known in Scrooge's time, or for many and many a winter season gone. Heaped up on the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, great joints of meat, sucking pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red-hot chestnuts, and seething bowls of punch that made the chamber dim with their delicious steam. In easy state upon this couch there sat a jolly giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch in shape not unlike Plenty's horn, and held it up, high up, to shed its light on Scrooge as he came peeping round the door.
Come in, Ebenezer Scrooge, and know me better, man.
Who?
I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You've never seen the like of me before.
You're different from the other spirit. You're tall, almost a giant, and the great torch you carry.
Its light pours into the homes of rich and poor alike.
Spirit, take me where you will. Last time I went against my will and learnt a lesson which is working now. If you have anything to teach me, let me profit by it.
Touch my robe, Ebenezer Scrooge. Touch my robe.
The room vanished. So did the fire. The ruddy glow at that hour of night vanished. Sunlight brushed them as they streamed through the clear morning air. The second spectre flew at a more leisurely speed, and Scrooge had time to observe people below him shoveling snow on the city roofs, calling out to one another from the pavements, and now and then pelting each other with snowballs. In the streets below them, the poultry shops were still half open, and the fruiterers were radiant in their holiday glory. Scrooge and his ghostly guide circled the tall spires as the steeples called good peoples to all the churches, and there below them lay Camden Town, with its squalid streets of ugly frame houses. Of all these dwellings, the ghosts selected the humblest for their visit. Scrooge, by now past all surprise, saw a woman dressed in a twice-turned gown, but brave in ribbons, busily laying the table. Assisting her was Belinda Cratchit, second of her daughters, also brave in ribbons, while Master Peter Cratchit plunged a fork into the saucepan of potatoes, and now two smaller Cratchits, boy and girl, came tearing in screaming that outside the baker's they had smelled a goose and known it for their own, and were now basking in luxurious thoughts of sage and onions. And three more young Cratchits danced about the table, and once more the wind opened.
Where have you brought me, Spirit?
A humble dwelling in a humble street.
It's humble enough.
Yet there is happiness there.
Who are these people? Who's that woman and the children?
But these are the family of your clerk, Bob Cratchit, his wife, his daughter Belinda, and the young man with the fork in the potatoes. Well, that's Master Peter Cratchit. And the two little Cratchits. Listen, Scrooge.
Here's Martha, Mother.
Martha.
Oh, bless your heart alive, Martha. My dear, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, Mother.
But how late you are, Martha.
Oh, we had a deal of work to finish up last night, and we had to clear away this morning.
Well, never mind, so long as you're here now. Sit you down by the fire and warm yourself, Lord bless you.
Where's Father?
He's been to church with Tiny Tim. He'll be along directly.
How is Tiny Tim, Mother? Any better at all?
Sometimes I think he is. Sometimes I think, oh dear God, if anything should happen to Tiny Tim. If Tiny Tim should die.
Mother, you mustn't even think of such a thing.
There's Tiny Tim.
And there was Bob Cratchit, with at least 3 feet of comforter exclusive of the fringe, hanging down before him in his threadbare clothes, donned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Poor Tiny Tim, he carried a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
Merry Christmas, everybody! Martha, welcome, my dear.
Merry Christmas, Father, and Tim.
Merry Christmas,
Oh,
Martha.
Tim, you darling. Oh,
Father, I'm so glad to be home.
And we're so glad to have you, Martha.
And how did little Tim behave in church, Bob?
Oh, as good as gold, and better.
I like church, Mother. Oh, they sang the nicest songs. When they sang the nicest hymns, the people were so kind to me. It was such fun riding home on Daddy's shoulder. I hope people saw me there.
Saw you there? And why, Tim?
Well, don't you see? Because I'm lame. And if they saw my crutch, it might be pleasant for them to remember on Christmas who it was made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Oh, bless you, my son.
Tim.
is it time to eat, please?
Yes, children, we're all ready. Come, take your places now. And Bob, wait your turn. There's plenty. Stuffing and dressing and plum pudding for all of you. Martha, you take care of Tiny Tim.
Yes, Mother.
You see that he eats plenty. He must get tall and well. Now sit down, everyone.
Now, my dears, shall we say grace?
Yes, Bob.
Our Father, who art in heaven, we thank thee for the daily bread which is thy mercy thou givest to us. Bless us this Christmas day. Keep us all together so that for many years to come we may unite here to do thy will and praise thy name. Amen.
Amen.
And now, my dears, with such a dinner, a toast, a Merry Christmas to us all, and God bless us.
Amen.
God bless us, everyone.
And now to Mr. Scrooge. Now I give you a toast to Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
The founder of the feast, indeed, who pays you all of 15 shillings a week. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast on, and I hope he'd have a good appetite for it.
Oh, my dear, the children, Christmas Day.
Well, it should be Christmas Day, I'm sure, on which one drinks the health of such an odious, stingy, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Bob. Nobody knows it better than you, poor fellow.
My dear, Christmas Day.
I'll drink to his health for your sake, and the day's, not for his. Long life to him. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, no doubt.
And I say, God bless him too, Mother, and everyone.
Oh, Tim.
There was nothing of high mark in all this, and they were not a handsome family, those Cratchits. They were not well dressed. Their shoes were far from being waterproof. Their clothes were scanty and had known, very likely, the insides of a pawnbroker's. But they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time. When at last they faded, Scrooge had his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim, until the last.
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live?
I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner carefully preserved.
No, kind spirit. Say he'll be spared. Say he'll live.
If these shadows remain unaltered by the future Ebenezer, the child will die.
Many calls Scrooge made that night with the ghost of Christmas present. Now he stood upon a bleak and desert moor where monstrous masses of rude stone were cast about, as though it was a burial place of giants. Down in the west, the setting sun had left a streak of fiery red, which glared upon the desolation for an instant like a sullen eye, then was lost in the thick gloom of darkest night. but the spirit bade Scrooge hold his robe, and passing on above the moor they sped on. Much they saw, and far they went, and many places they visited, but always with a happy end. The spirit stood beside sick beds, and they were cheerful. They were close at home with poverty, and it was rich in alms. To hospitals and jails where in vain man, in his little brief authority, had tried to make fast the door and bar the spirit out. Nevertheless, he left his blessing. It was a long night, if it were only a night. And it was strange, too, that while Scrooge remained unaltered in his outward form, the ghost grew older, clearly older.
My life upon this globe is very brief, Ebenezer. It ends tonight.
Tonight?
Tonight at midnight. Hark! The hour has come.
Oh, no, not yet. There are still more things I wish to learn.
These you will learn from still another spirit. Still another spirit, Ebenezer.
Scrooge looked about him for the ghost. It had vanished, and he found himself once more in his bed, in his dressing gown, in his nightcap on his head. He heard the clock strike. And then he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld the third spirit, a solemn phantom shrouded in black, draped and hooded, coming towards him slowly and silently like a mist upon the ground. The spirit slowly, gravely, silently approached, and the very air through which it moved seemed to scatter gloom and mystery.
I am the ghost of Christmas yet to come, Ebenezer Scrooge. I am about to show you the shadows of the things that have not happened, but will happen in the time before us.
I know you. I fear you more than any specter I've ever seen, but yet I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, lead on the night's waning fast and time's precious.
Scrooge followed in the shadow of its dress, which bore him up, he thought, and carried him along, and suddenly they were in a room which Scrooge seemed to remember having seen before, where a woman and a child were.
Spirit, why have you brought me here again? Here to Bob Cratchit's home? But it's not the same. Why is it so quiet? So very quiet here.
Mother, please.
Oh, my son, my little son, Tiny Tim. I loved him so.
Oh, Mother dear, you mustn't. It's almost time for Father to be home. Don't let him see you crying.
Yes, Martha.
He's late tonight.
He walks slower than he used to. And yet, I've known him to walk very fast indeed with Tiny Tim on his shoulder.
So have I, Mother.
But he was light to carry, and his father loved him so. So it was no trouble. No trouble. Bob.
Good evening, my dear.
You're late, Bob.
Yes. I'm sorry, my dear. I went to the churchyard today. I wish you could have gone with me. It would have done your heart good to see how sweet and green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him, yes, I promised Tiny Tim would walk there on a Sunday.
Father, dear.
It's God's will, Bob. My son, my little son, Tiny Tim. I loved him so.
I'm trying to understand it, my dear.
Oh, that's cruel. Cruel spirit. Can't you give me one ray of hope? That I may change all that Tiny Tim may live?
Scrooge tried to break through the shade that held him to talk with Bob Cratchit, to speak some word of comfort, but the sleeve of the ghost of Christmas yet to come passed in front of him and shut the family from his view.
Where are you taking me now? Here, on a common street, spirit. What is there for me to learn here? Who are these men?
I don't know how much about it either way. I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Well, last night, I think.
Well, it's likely to be a very cheap funeral, for upon my life, I don't know anybody to go to it. Suppose we make up a party and volunteer.
Well, I don't mind going if a lunch is provided.
You know, come to think of it, I'll bet I was his best friend.
What?
We used to nod to each other when we met in the street.
Spirit, help me. Who is this man that died? Is there no one to mourn the poor creature? No one to follow him to the grave? Perhaps they'll give him a green grave at least, like poor Tiny Tim, perhaps.
And now they were in an obscure part of the town where Scrooge had never been before. The ways were foul and narrow, the shops and houses wretched, the people drunken, slipshod, ugly. The whole quarter reeked with crime, with filth and misery deep. In this den of infamous resort there was a low-browed, beetling pawn shop where iron, old rags and bottles were bought, and there was an old charwoman standing at the counter.
Undo my bundle, Joe.
I hope Scrooge didn't have nothing catching.
Oh, don't be afraid.
I ain't so fond of his company that I'd take a chance of that.
You may look through that shirt till your eyes ache, and you won't find a hole in it. The best he had, and a fine one too. He'd have wasted it if it hadn't been for me.
What you call a wasting of it, Miss Dilbert?
Putting it on him to be buried in. Somebody was fool enough to do it, but I took it off him again. If calico ain't good enough for such a purpose, it ain't good enough for anything. He can't look uglier than he did in that one.
And here's his bed curtains. Small use he'll have for them where he's going.
That's the truest word there is what you ever spoke, Joe.
So this is the end of him, eh?
You see, he frightened everyone away from him when he was alive, to profit us when he was dead.
The phantom spread its dark robe before him for a moment like a wing, and withdrawing it revealed another place, a churchyard walled in by houses, overrun by grass and weeds, choked up with too much burying, fat with repleted appetite. A worthy place. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down toward it, and Scrooge, following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Spirit, am I the man who lay dead?
Upon that, the spirit pointed from the grave to him and back again, and the upper portion of its black, deep garment was contracted for an instant in its folds, and then Scrooge saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrank, collapsed, and dwindled into a bedpost, yes, and the bedpost was his own bed.
Oh, no! No! Spirit, no, hear me! I'm not the man I was! Why show me this if I have past all hope? Tell me that I can change these dreadful shadows you've showed me by an altered life. I'll honor Christmas in my heart. I'll try to keep it all the year. I'll live in the past, the present, and the future. And I'll not shut out the lessons that they teach. Tell me, Spirit. Oh, go on, tell me that I can sponge away the writing on that stone, Spirit. I beg you, Spirit, I beg you.
But he was back in his own bed. It was his own, the room was his own. Best and happiest of all the time before him was his ability to make amends. And running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist, clear, bright, jovial, stirring, cold, piping for the blood to dance in. Golden sunlight, heavenly air, sweet, fresh air, merry bells. Oh, glorious, glorious!
And the sun's shining, it's clear, it's bright, no fog, what a beautiful day. Hey boy!
Yes, sir?
What's today?
What's that, sir?
What day is it, my fine fellow?
Today? Why, it's Christmas Day.
Christmas Day? Then I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. Heaven be praised. I'm as merry as a schoolboy.
How's that, sir?
Listen, my lad. You know where the poultry is in the next street?
I should say I do.
An intelligent boy, a remarkable boy. Tell me, do you know if they sold the prize turkey that was hanging in the window?
The one as big as me.
What a delightful boy. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Yes, my buck.
It's hanging there now, sir.
That's wonderful. Go down, will you, and tell him to send it to Bob Cratchit and his family on Broad Street. And mind you, they're not to know who paid for it. Go along. Hurry, my lad. Wait a minute. Here's half a crown for your trouble.
Oh, yes, sir. And a Merry Christmas, sir.
And a Merry Christmas to you, my boy. Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. Merry Christmas! A Merry Christmas to everybody! A Happy New Year to all the world! Woo-hoo! Hallabaloo! My dear sir, how do you do?
I beg your pardon.
Well, you, sir, aren't you the gentleman who came to my office in regard to that charity?
Why, yes, sir.
A Merry Christmas to you.
Yes, sir.
Allow me to ask your pardon, sir, and will you have the goodness to accept? I prefer to whisper this.
What? Oh, Lord bless me. My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?
If you please, now not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favor?
Well, my dear sir, I don't know what to say to such
No, don't say anything, please. Come and see me. Will you come and see me?
I will indeed.
Thank you. I am much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you. Merry Christmas.
Next morning, Scrooge was early at his office. He went early for a reason. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he'd set his heart upon. And he did it. Yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1:15. No Bob. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come in. At last he came. His hat was off before he opened the door, his comforter too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
15 and 21, 6 and carry the 1, 24 and carry the 2, 31 and 8, 1, 9, 15, 26, carry 2, 3,
Hello,
4.
you Cratchit!
Yes, sir?
Step this way, Cratchit, if you please. Cratchit, what do you mean by coming in at this time of day?
Why, I am very sorry, sir. I am behind my time.
You are, yes, I think you are.
Oh, it's only once a year, Mr. Scrooge. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir.
I'll tell you what, my friend. I'll not stand this sort of thing any longer, and therefore, Bob Cratchit, I'm about to raise your salary.
Mr. Scrooge, are you quite yourself, sir?
No, thank heaven, I'm not quite myself. Merry Christmas, Bob. Merry Christmas, my good fellow. A merrier Christmas than I've given you in many a year. I shall raise your salary, and we'll see what we can do for Tiny Tim and the rest of your family, huh? We'll discuss it this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop. Bob, make up the fire. Make it up and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. To Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh, and little heeded them. His own heart laughed. That was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever afterwards. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, of all of us, and so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone.
You have just heard our presentation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, starring Robin Jones, brought to you by the makers of Campbell Soups. And now, here is Orson Welles.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in the program, it's my custom, as you know, to present to you with a few words of introduction our guest of the evening. With your consent, I shall dispense with this tonight. To introduce tonight's guest to the Campbell Playhouse audience, or to any American audience, is an extravagant and superfluous procedure. For if ever an actor has won for himself a lasting place in the hearts of his fellow countrymen through years of unsparing and inspiring service, that actor is Robin Jones. Mr. Robin Jones!
Thank you. Thank you, Orson Welles. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I've had the pleasure of appearing in A Christmas Carol here in the Campbell Playhouse, and I assure you all it's a pleasure that will never tire.
As long as I can remember, this has been one of my favorite stories. When we were children, it was read to us regularly this time of year, as it is to many millions of children right now. and like many of them, I'm sure, the three of us, Brendan, my brother, and John Enos, my best friend, and I, with the aid of a sheet and some old ironware, made a play of it. And as I remember, we had 3 Scrooges in that production.
Who played Tiny Tim?
I think we had 3 Tiny Tims, too. But seriously, stop. I can think of no part that I've enjoyed playing again and again as much as I have the part of that squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, Ebenezer Scrooge. And I can think of no happier or more suitable choice for the makers of Campbell's Soups to offer the people of America as their Christmas present each year than Charles Dickens' well-beloved story, A Christmas Carol. Good night, Orson. Good night, everybody, and Merry, Merry Christmas to you all.
Good night to you, Mr. Jones. Thank you, sir, and a Merry Christmas to you. Ladies and gentlemen, the night before Christmas, and all through the Campbell Playhouse, not a creature is stirring that doesn't wish you a Merry Christmas. That goes for all of us, for your sponsor, for myself, for all of us, from Seth, Anthony, and Carl, who run the machinery in the control room, to Miss Hess, who types the Campbell Playhouse scripts, to Dave, our house manager this evening. Merry Christmas from all of us to all of you, and a Merry Christmas from David and Jeff, the demon crew of sound technicians. And now, finally, as Tiny Tim says,
God bless us, everyone.
wishing you all a very Merry Christmas on behalf of the makers of Campbell's Soups. This is WERT. My sponsors, the makers of Campbell's Soups, and all of us in the Campbell Playhouse remain, as always, obediently yours.
Merry Christmas! The makers of Campbell's Soup join Orson Welles in inviting you to be with us in the Campbell's Soup Playhouse again next year. Why don't you tell your grocer when you next order Campbell's Soup to listen in? This is Ernestine Chappelle saying thank you and a very Merry Christmas to you all.
This is WERT, the Everyman Repertory Theatre's radio station, signing off.